Hey everyone, hi. Hope you all can see. Cool. Let's quickly get started. Hello everyone, thanks for joining the session. Uh, a quick introduction about me. I'm Prashanth. I'm an interaction designer working on Google Search. I take care of especially the language experiences on search, and language experiences cater around 1.45 billion monthly active users like every month. So which is like a huge number for us with respect to the search traffic, and that is the reason I just want to talk about designing for the billion users, which is like closer to my work. So today we are going to briefly look at how we are trying to build globally accessible products at Google, and what tenets have been we have been following in our classes and everything. So this talk will be like a mix of best practices, except from some expert talks, and then past experiences, guidelines, and a lot of other things. So this is going to be a huge mix of things. So make sure that you grasp most of it. So, before we get into the depth of it, I just want to make sure that we understand, or we're all on the same page with respect to the definitions of these terms. So, to start with, we all know what usability means. So, it's a quality that assesses how easy the product is designed to use. And after that, I want to talk about the accessibility part of it. It's an attribute where a quality that makes an experience open to all. Like it's not just confined to one single person or a group, but it's like open to all. And then comes the inclusivity design or the inclusive design, which is like a practice that embraces diversity, where we try to make sure that whatever product or the experience that we design are kind of working for the entire audience that we plan to design for, right? So when we kind of put these three into perspectives, I would say the smallest bucket would be the accessibility, which kind of is the core, and then with the other one that kind of encompasses accessibility is the inclusive design, which has all the traits of accessibility, but it also extends beyond accessibility, where you think about the cultures of the people, their day-to-day lives, their practices, their characters, and everything. And then even on a higher level, usability is kind of encompasses all these things and make sure that it's usable for all the audience. So this is how I would put these three terms into perspective. And yeah, please feel free to post your questions if you think that this is kind of not working, or maybe you have a different thought around this. Cool. So moving on, we always had a problem with inclusivity in the world. So this is a great example about non-inclusive design. So this is called the Long Island Parkway. This was built by Robert Moses. So this was a non-inclusive design because the bridge was actually constructed as a very low passage, so that all the trucks and the buses don't can't pass through the other side, which has the public parks that could be that people can go. So they want to make sure that only people who have cars and smaller vehicles, the private vehicles, should pass through and reach those recreational activities, and the other people who take public transports like trams or buses should not go to the other side. And that was the whole reason of building this Long Island Parkway. So this was a huge example in history, which is a non-inclusive design, and how people designed it to make sure that they exclude others not to not use their product or experiences. uh, so I'm not sure how many of you know the Microsoft's inclusivity toolkit. So they have a very good definition for disability. So they say disability is not about personal health condition, but disability is like a mismatched human interaction, which is very nice and neat. So what happens when mismatches of these interactions do? So due to these mismatches, it leads to exclusion. Like you exclude a group of people from your product, and they'll not be able to use your product at all, right? And when you kind of see who we are designing for, we think that we are designing for the entire audience or the entire user group that we are targeting. But ideally, in the real world scenario, we exclude a lot of people, and we just include a very specific set of people who are tech savvy and who are able to kind of understand the tech and use it. So yeah, so to put them into perspective, if this is your user group, you see the the dark black people, that is all the user groups that you are kind of actually designing for, and the rest of the group is are excluded from the experience. So there is another example which is called the wave to flush. So this is a classic example of a nice polished design, where this is a flush which works when you wave it. So this is a great design to look at. This is a great design, to make and to sell, and people will be really excited about it. But how is this catering to the entire audience that you're targeting for? Like, how would a person with a low vision, or maybe with one arm, do this interaction and use this? So that is where the whole inclusivity part comes into picture, and then you kind of exclude a whole bunch of audience from there, right? So it's just not about how good the design looks. It's all about how it works for the entire set of audience that you're targeting for. Um, and then going back to types of types of disabilities, there are these three types of disabilities that I'm sure most of you would have seen in the past. Like, there are permanent disabilities where people have a permanent disability in their physical form, and there are temporary disabilities, like, let's say you had a hand fracture, or maybe you have an ear infection, or maybe you have a throat infection where you can't do a voice command and whatnot, right? And then the third type of disability is the situational disability. Like, you maybe you are holding a bunch of shopping bags, and you're not able to use two hands for your phone. So those are like situational disabilities. Maybe you're in a crowded bar, and then there are a lot of sounds there, and you're not able to view the video properly. So these are kind of situational disabilities that everybody would encounter in day-to-day life. The whole theme of the talk would be to solve for one and then extend to many. We'll see with examples like how we can solve for one, and then how that can be extended to many people, right? Uh, so designing for a persona spectrum extends the benefit to more people. Like, let's say you take the deaf person as a persona, and then you if you design for them, which is like a permanent disability, you also cater to the needs of the temporary disability, which is like an ear infection. And then the situational disability, which is like a bar attendant who is kind of in a crowded or a on a very noisy place. So this is a very good example of creating subtitles or captions, which kind of works for deaf people the most. But it also works for people with ear infection in a temporary way, and then for bar attenders who are situational disabled, in a noisy bar, right? So this is how you kind of design for one, and then extend this possibility to many other people. uh, so, oh, sorry. So some statistics around here. So they say that in 1 in 7 people have disabilities worldwide, which is like a huge number. And when you put that into perspective, you lose out a lot of people who will not be able to use your products and services when you don't cater to that kind of an audience, right? If you want to take into account the permanent disability, the temporary, and the situational disability in the US, in a year, you lose around 21 million or more people who might encounter any of these three disabilities every year, right? And then this one bad experience could really lead to not using your product or your experience at all for a longer time. Yeah. So also, if you want to pitch, let's say you want to pitch inclusive design in your organization, the first question would be what is the benefit for the business to invest in an inclusive design or an inclusive design process, right? So the thing is that there is around 21 billion discretionary income where disabled people hold, but they're not able to use they're not be able to buy the products because it's not really catering to their needs, right? Let's say you are designing a product, you want to sell it for a cost, they are willing to pay it, but it's not really fitting their needs, or it's not really working for their use cases. Cool. And this is a classic example of how you can slightly modify a product and then still make it useful for all the rest of the world, right? So this is a normal straw, and somebody introduced something called a bendy straw that is used for disabled people when they are in the wheelchairs, when they're not able to really use the normal straw in an upright manner, right? So this was designed, the bendy straw was designed actually for the disabled folks, but then it was extended to people who are sitting in the beach relaxing, and then it kind of really resonated with them to be to use it in any form and not really sit upright and drink through the straw. So bendy became like a norm. It's a normal thing now, and it's not like really focused only for the disabled folks. So that's how we kind of start designing for one particular set of folks, and then the solution kind of gets benefited by a lot of other folks, and they get it kind of extends to a lot of other spectrums of users. Moving on, another great example would be Morgan's Inspiration Island. So this was the first fully accessible theme park, which was in San Antonio, Texas. So this was designed as a fully accessible theme park, but obviously, when that is a fully accessible theme park, even normal people can spend their quality time there. So that's how this became a really a famous one, where you design something for disabled folks, and then it kind of extends to all the rest of the normal audience at all. Cool. So now these are all the physical examples, and then let's dive deep into making sure that we know how inclusive design works on web and mobile apps. So I'm gonna just take a wild example here. This is not an actual app. I'm just gonna name it Trips, and this is an app where you can maybe, let's say, uh, book your vacations or maybe flight tickets and stay hotels and everything. Right. Let's see how we can make this more inclusive. Right. So this is one classic example of making sure your touch targets are like fully extended for maybe uh, radio buttons, right? So because this in the left side, the touch target is only given for the square or the radio or the checkbox, and this caters only to the right hand side, right hand users, right? But if you kind of make sure that it extends to the entire screen, it kind of caters to both left hand and the right hand users. So this is a very small tweak that you could actually do in your design, which impacts a lot to people who are, like, let's say, holding their bags, shopping bags, and trying to use your phone. Use your app on the phone on the right hand or maybe left hand, right? And interactions like swipe to close, instead of reaching all the way to the close button on the top, you could simply have a swipe down button to close it, so that this is easily accessible for both hands, as well as people with short hands using bigger phones and whatnot. So another example is, whenever people kind of land on a search page, make sure that the immediate next action that they are going to take is to type. So make sure you put your cursor focused already on the search bar, so that they don't have to again reach back all the way to the top and tap on the search and then start typing. So I think this is a norm that is already used in places like Twitter and Instagram. So when you go to Twitter, and maybe when you long press your search on the bottom tab, I think it actually directly focuses on your search bar, and does not really require another click to kind of go and reach to the top and tap on it. And I think it's the same with Instagram too. When you long press on your search, it actually takes your cursor and points it to the search, and then it opens up the keyboard already. So this is a great tweaks that you could do to your app to cater to the right hand left hand use, small hands big phone use, right? So yeah. So this is another example where you can use icons to make sure that people understand the error message as well. I think this is a classic example, and a lot of people here would have already seen this or used this. So instead of representing just with colors, where in the left hand side you just show a orange bar around the uh, field, where people might not really understand that this is an error message. Maybe you are viewing your phone in a huge sunlight, or maybe in a very in a very bright environment where the orange might not really stand out. So you can definitely add a warning icon, so that even in bright sunlights, or maybe brighter environments, you're able to still know that which one is actually an error, errorous field in the form. Yeah, and then another classic example would be hamburger versus bottom nav, which has been a debate for a long time. But yeah, if you have like crucial things in your app that people want to navigate quickly, make sure that you put it as a bottom nav, which is in the reachable area for your thumbs, instead of hiding them into a hamburger on the top right. Definitely, the hamburger approach is cleaner. It's much cleaner and sleeker. But I think when you look at the pros and cons, the bottom nav has a lot of pros where people are able to know what is present in the app, the features of the app, and it's like reachable, and people can switch between intents faster and everything. So I think as a designers we have to make a call whether we need a very cleaner UI or a very functional UI. So this is a classic example where you can cater to the needs of users uh, for double-handed uses. Yeah, these are some of the examples that you can just adapt from your usual iOS patterns, where you can slide from left to right to go back, instead of going all the way to the top and tapping on the arrow to go actually back one step, right? I think this has been already introduced in iOS and Android, but I think as developers and designers we need to make sure that your app caters to these functionalities, and not just if you don't really code this functionality manually, you might miss out on this huge great function where it's easy for people to just swipe and go back instead of going all the way to the top and tapping on the arrow, right? And another classic example is to use contrast colors here. So on the left hand side, if you go and check your accessibility for the left hand side, it is still accessible. The blue on the lighter blue, it's still accessible. But is it functional? No. So just to make sure that your designs are functional enough, please make sure that you use like super accessible colors on top of the darker shades, so that it's always visible on both light mode or dark mode, brighter environments and darker environments, and so on. And I think 40 pixels, I think 48 pixels is a norm for touch target on iOS. I think 40 pixels is for Android. But yeah, I think that's a known fact. Yeah, so this is a great example where you can tell the user upfront that there are no results for this particular filters, instead of making people tap on search results and then go back to the page and see that there are no results, right? So when people are kind of combining two results which don't necessarily have any results, make sure that you pop that out right away, so that they don't really have to navigate back and forth and kind of do this. So this is very important on a mobile screen, because mobile screen has a very small real estate, and people really don't want to do a lot of interactions going back and forth here, right? So that's again a very good thing to keep in mind when you're really focusing on making some good real mobile apps. Yeah, and this is again slightly falling into the part of accessibility, where you have to really name the buttons properly. So when people are using screen readers, if you don't meta tag the buttons properly, all your actions would be called out as button when the screen reader kind of looks at it. So it'll be button, 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 and button. So people might not know which is cancel, which is confirm, which is to go back, and which is to skip steps. So instead, if you kind of make sure that you add the meta tag, which is like the previous step button, checkout progress button, cancel order button, and confirm order button, which is like a very basic and a standard accessibility form. That would really help users at all instances to kind of go back and forth in these forms. uh, yeah, and keyboard accessibility for desktop is again a huge differentiating factor. So it's not only for the screen readers, but also for normal users who are, maybe, let's say, they don't their mouse is not functioning that day, or maybe their Bluetooth mouse has drained out of power, and they're trying to use it on a tab, on a keyboard, right? So if you see here, this is a classic example where uh, this is a list of all the flights that are available. And then if you don't properly segment your page, it will take 94 tabs for them to kind of go through all the 94 results and then go to the filters, right? Instead, a simple way to kind of overcome this is put all your results in one bucket, so that people can either double click on that and go into these different flights, or they can directly skip to the filters at one instance. So you are saving like 93 tabs that a user is going to go through, right? Yeah. And yeah, always have an escape hatch, right? So like this is a very common example where you, when you, let's say, select your seats on a flight or maybe on a movie theater, you get you get an overlay on top saying that this seat is having a lot of headroom or a leg room, or maybe this is the best viewing position in your auditorium or whatnot. But there are most cases it's like a hover, right? So when users kind of hover through all the different seats, the the hover kind of is a very distracting method to kind of give users the information, and it might get irritated to some point, right? So always have an escape hatch where people just say escape and then it kind of goes away, and then you can simply choose whichever seat you want. Cool. So I think that's pretty much about the basics of what I think are needed for interactions in a mobile app. But let's talk about languages. Like I work on the language experiences on search. We cater to around 50 plus languages. We are like moving to 100 plus languages right now. But at least we have like dictionaries for 50 plus languages on search, and we have a huge affinity towards these language preferences. I'm going to give you a few examples here. So this is, let's say, inclusive. I'm just putting a bunch of text here. Let's say it's inclusive app design, designing for a billion users, and then I put my name here. This looks really good for the English language, where I have used like a full caps, I've used a sentence case, and I've used in italics. Right, there is a good differentiation that I can see. But when this get translated into Chinese, there is no uppercase, there is no lowercase in Chinese, there is no italics in Chinese, so it will all look like this, the same, right? So that's going to be a huge bummer when people kind of switch languages uh, during their phone setup. So maybe you're designing your app for an international audience, and somebody's going to look at it in Russian, look at it in Portuguese, Spanish, or simplified Chinese or whatnot. So to kind of cater these needs, make sure your UI kind of has these differentiations in space and colors, so that even if they translate into any different languages, it still holds the same priority of information, as well as the hierarchy of how it can be seen for the user. So one amazing example for the app internationalization is Airbnb. So they have done a very good international standards, where it kind of caters to most of the languages very well. So you can see this is one screenshot from Airbnb, where in English it still works, and then when you even translate to Chinese, it still works very well with the height and the font sizes and everything. Yeah, again, talking about the font sizes, it's again different for different languages. Let's say A could be accessible till 11 points, but if you go to Chinese, I think it ends up in 17 points, because it's a very complicated sign, and then it can't be read in a very small font size. So make sure when you're kind of designing for an international audience or for a worldwide group, make sure you are kind of choosing the most usable font sizes for your app, and make sure you have a threshold and not go beyond below that, so that it's unusable for some of the audience, and usable for some audience. Yeah, and there are these ligatures that some of the languages have, which are kind of lines that go on top and bottom. So it's always good to have kind of a dynamic space for your text to render on the app, so that it kind of caters to all these kind of different needs that every language has. Yeah. So here is a great example where the same bunch of text in English kind of can be fit into a certain number of height, but when you translate it to Chinese, there are so much truncation that's happening. You can see there are a few words that are kind of going out of the box, right? So that's a classic example where you want to make sure that your components are kind of dynamic to kind of capture all the information, even if you're translating to any different languages. Yeah. So there are a lot of languages which are which kind of expand to a larger length when you translate them. Like the word use in English has a huge it takes up a lot of space in Russian. Like it's four times the length of English. So if you're particularly using these kind of action verbs in your app, make sure that you test it thoroughly in all these different languages so that it's kind of usable for all the audience. I can give you an example of how this might impact. So let's assume this is like a critical information for you while you're backing up your maybe you're transferring your data to a new phone, and then they're asking you this is a setup that says please back up your data before resetting the device. This is a very crucial information that the user needs to know. What if you have checked for English, Chinese, and Arabic, and it all looks good? Maybe Russian, it looks like this, but the actual problem would be the full text is kind of truncated here. So, and users might not even know. They might actually lose the most critical information in these kind of scenarios. So, in those cases, what we could do is disable the button, make sure that the text is scrollable so that people scroll and then read the whole message, and then your button kind of gets enabled so that you're aware that the people have the person or the user has read the crucial information before resetting their phone. Yeah, you would really hate for the end of the very important message to be lost. So yeah, that's a that's a classic example where you really lose something and you get pissed off. Yeah, so now I think that's all about languages that I had, and some of the interesting examples that I had for colors when you design for international audience are uh, obviously the red blind, blue blind, and the green blind, the color blindness in folks, right? So if you see, this is a stock app on iOS, and when you kind of transform this into the red blind lens, it kind of looks like this. So you are not really aware if this is if this stock is going up or not. So you are kind of not catering to needs of a huge amount of people, right? And when you see 1 in 12 men are colorblind, uh, I think I should not be using the word men here. That's a mistake from my end. It's not inclusive, but yeah, 1 in 12 people are colorblind. So a very easy hatch to kind of go out is to just use arrows so that you people know that if the stock is going up or down in any of these different color blindness, like red color blindness or monochromacy or whatever. This not only works in these apps, like Gmail is again a huge Google Calendars is like a very huge product that's used worldwide. So instead of having these colors here, uh, we could also use like patterns where people can recognize these different colors using these patterns here, and it could work for a lot of other different audience too, right? And then this, I think this is the iOS mail app where the unread and the flagged is just having a different color and not a different shape or anything, which might be really lost when you kind of look at it in a bright sunlight or a very illuminated environment. So what if you kind of use different slightly different variations of the same icon? So you have a flagged icon for the flag, and then the unread might remain the same, so people can quickly differentiate when they're skimming through your emails. Yeah. So the last part of it is about the illustrations. So I'm sure you have seen a lot of illustrations in the past where you know you go to websites and people put up a very nice set of illustrations talking about the product, their uh, their product and the services and everything. But if you take a closer look at it, are they really inclusive of all the people that they want to target? Right. So whenever, like, if you are an illustrator, make sure that all your illustrations kind of represent everyone in that, right? For example, Atlassian is a great example for this, where they have a person who's sitting in a wheelchair, they have a person with a dark skin, and so on. And another great example is Microsoft Teams. So this was by the Microsoft Teams, where they kind of represent people who are slightly overweight, who are slightly old, who are young, who are having a different hair color, who are having a different skin color and whatnot. So this is a great way to kind of make sure that whoever comes to your site are feeling inclusive, are feeling included with your product, and they can associate with your product. And yeah, So that is all I had today. So we want to quickly recap what we saw today all the while. So we just want to make sure all the designs and the products are catering to the dexterity, mobility, vision, and your hearing, right? So make sure the app is very simple, so it's easy to navigate, quick to start, and it has a consistent behavior. Like if you're designing an iOS app, make sure you kind of cater to all the native iOS behaviors, like swipe to go back, or maybe pinch to zoom, double tap to like. All these are like consistent behaviors that other apps are doing. So make sure you are consistent with them, quick to start, and easy to navigate, and perceivable. Make sure your fonts are legible and you're not using the smallest fonts, which might not be perceived in other languages. And make sure you're using legible colors and icons as appropriate. And make sure you're incorporating sounds and haptics at the right places, so that even if people are not able to see those information on the screen, they will get a sound or a haptic, which kind of helps them understand that you are kind of uh, you have done something on the app and there is a message for that. And integrity. So make sure you evaluate all the needs, be empathetic with all the different user groups, and while you're designing, make sure you're responsibility designing that caters to all the user needs. So this is a great video that you can go and watch online. This was by Microsoft. So if you can go and search on YouTube, saying gaming that is accessible for all, so they have created a nice gaming, a gaming console which can be used by disabled children. So it's a very heartwarming, video. You should definitely go and look at it. I think because I'm running out of time, I won't be able to play this, but yeah, definitely please watch this video and let me know what you guys think about it. Uh, so yeah, at Google, at least we have a huge, a very huge mission given by Sundar for us. So he has said that technology's great promise is to give everyone the same power to achieve the goals. So as long as there are barriers, there is always work to be done. So we take accessibility and inclusivity like as a huge thing in all the products. And that is the reason we are able to kind of reach, at least we're able to make Google search a universal product that is catering to billions of users every day. So yeah, let's not make designs like this where nobody is able to read it. Let's not also make designs like this where nobody can people can see it, or maybe they're not able to understand it. Let's make sure that we design for everyone, which is understandable and usable by everyone. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for listening. If you have any questions, I can definitely answer. Cool. What is the greatest challenge of an inclusive design? Yeah, so the greatest challenge would be to kind of cater to most needs, right? So what happens is, there is no design that can cater for 100% of the audience, right? So when you keep iterating on a design that will work for 100% of your users, you will never reach that stage. So I think that's always a challenge. We have to compromise in some at some stage, but it should not be at the cost of 50% of users or 60% of users. So we just want to try to push our boundaries and make sure that at least 90% of the users are able to use it. So we just want to make sure it's all accessible. It's completely accessible driven. You test for accessibility, you test for all your colors and icons and interactions and everything, so that it kind of caters to most of them meaning like 90-95%. And then 5% are some places that will not be definitely able to work out with the current tech and the timelines, the tech and the product. So we still try to do that. So I think that's the challenge that we always face while designing. What do you use for integrating easily accessible components on your UX? Do you use plugins like uh, Axe, Lighthouse, or websites or other things? So, so for we have a central design system which is super accessible. Every component and every color and icon is thoroughly tested by the design systems team, and before we kind of put them in the product or give it out to our designers to use it. So whatever we get is already 100% accessible in terms of dark mode, light mode, colors, and everything. And we also have a very strict development guidelines given to our engineers to make sure that everything goes through an accessibility check. So we make sure that it's screen reader compatible, it's a voiceover compatible. We make sure that all our components are properly meta tagged, so that it's not like a repetitive button scenario, right? Which we explained earlier. We don't have any specialized tools. We just make sure that we use our design systems properly, and we have a central accessibility team who kind of guides us if we have anything really niche in our product. Like we take them and then show them, saying that hey, we have something like this, how can we make it more accessible? And then they give us ideas and feedbacks around it. So that's how we kind of do it, at least at Google, in search. So we have not really used any specific tools as such. We use are our internal tools so far. What are your thoughts of not using pure black and white color for your design? Yeah, I think there has been a debate for a long time. We have never used pure black in our design systems at Microsoft. We are not using pure black as in our design systems at Google. The only reason being, pure black sometimes is kind of pain to the eyes when overdone, and it's the same with the white. So pure white kind of drains a lot of battery, and it's also kind of straining your eyes when you look at it in the dark. And that's why you want to make sure it's one shade, like we use a slight gray or a slight black, or a slightly black tones for both these cases. So it has been an industry standard, because I've not seen that in Microsoft, I've not seen that in Google yet. And I think that would be the reason where it's kind of straining the eyes when you overdo that with those strong colors. How this accessibility inclusivity will play in Web3? Oh, I'm not really a fan of Web3 yet. We are kind of exploring our aspects on search on Web3, Google search on Web3, but we're not really dig deep into the accessibility part of it. I think it would stay the same, at least making sure it's accessible for all the users. It's catered to the needs of vision, hearing impairment, and then motor impairment and everything. Making sure it is keyboard compatible, screen readers and voiceovers and everything. I think that is the at least the base for all the products and services. But I really don't know if there is something that will come up, especially for Web3. I don't really know at this point in time. I'm sorry. Is it a separate critique done by a different team or not? So yeah, I think as I already mentioned, we have a pretty robust design system which is already vetted by so many engineers and designers to make sure that it's 100% already accessible. But we also have a very rigorous accessibility testing that goes on. We have vendors, like we hire vendors from outside companies to kind of test our UIs to make sure that it's 100% accessible and compatible with the guidelines. And we have like a bare minimum standards, which is I think AA. AA is where we are allowed to even roll the product out for a testing. And if it doesn't go, if it doesn't meet the standards of AA, we'll not even test it out. So until all the accessibility bugs are fixed, I think catering to accessibility is more about fixing a good good process in place, so that people are aware of how important this is, and how this is going to impact people's millions of people's life. So once you have a good robust design system, I think that solves like 60-70% of the problem. And then the 30% of the problem, you make sure your engineers are testing accessibility to the 100% before it's kind of getting released. Awesome. I think that would be that was the last question. So yeah, thank you all for patiently listening to this. Please, yeah, you can definitely connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm all available. So yeah, let's definitely talk more if you have more questions. I'm also mentoring on ADPList, not a lot, but I do it every week at least. So I have very small slots open. But I make sure I kind of meet new people every now and then, and help them out, and also learn from them a lot. So yeah, thanks a lot for for your all your time.